I wanted to give you a full minute to enjoy Matt Furness's quite decent soundtrack, in my opinion at least, before deciding to butt in. I'm fairly sure my brother asked me to cover this game at one point, so here we are. Welcome to Shadow Warriors, or in my case, Shadow Warrior, because I'm playing by myself. You can play this game as two players at the same time. Being a Techmo arcade original, this game features the character of, surprise, surprise, Ryu or Ryu, whatever you decide to call him, Hayabusa. That name may be familiar to you if you have played games like Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden Black, Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden. I know he was also a playable character in the fighting series called Dead or Alive. And don't get me wrong, it probably sounds like I'm trying to knock the character a bit. I'm not. I do find the character very interesting, especially in a game like Ninja Gaiden Black, which is one of the best games of its kind ever made for any system. Don't argue, there's nothing to argue. That game is near perfection. End of story. But your task is to defeat a bunch of henchmen until you reach the end of level, and then you fight at the end of level boss, which probably comes as a huge surprise, and do that 5 times and you are the greatest hero ever. You'll hear people sing your praises and all that good stuff. Switching to a sound effects game just for some variety. The arcade original, I played it many years ago, and I was one of those being absolutely in awe by the main mechanic of this game even, which is of course the ability to actively throw your opponents. If you fight individual opponents, you can throw them, jump, and as you land, they will get back up, so you throw them again. So you can basically knock them out using that mechanic alone. Obviously, you are rarely going to be in the luxurious position of fighting one enemy at a time, and when you have multiple enemies around you, it becomes more and more difficult to pull off. It is not something that you haven't seen before, but I suppose when the game was originally released, it was something of a new thing. That, I mean, as fighting games go, it's pretty generic, but that mechanic, that ability to actively throw instead of having to punch an enemy 17 times before you automatically finish off with a throw in your combo sequence, was a breath of fresh air, I suppose. The Amiga conversion of this game, from a graphical point of view, is almost identical to the arcade. There are some color differences, but by and large it is pretty accurate. In one regard, I will actually highlight the Amiga over the arcade, and this is a question of opinion, but I think the in-game music is far superior on the Amiga compared to the arcade. It's basically the same music, it's just a different instrumentation, and I think, I think, me, and I, all that good stuff, think that the Amiga version is superior. You are more than welcome to disagree. I'm not going to call your names if you do. It is entirely up to you. When playing the arcade, I don't know whether demo sounds has been disabled, because of course when you have 40 arcade machines in the same room, having all of them playing demo sounds becomes a cacophony, whatever, of noise waves riding around the room constantly. So a lot of proprietors decided to disable demo sounds, But in that regard, I don't know whether the arcade original had a theme track, and if not, then it is a composition specifically made for this conversion, and as I stated earlier, I find that to be rather good. The sound effects, I can take them or leave them. I do find that the main character, when he dies, his outburst reminds me of, without being too delicate, a young person, interesting magazine, and you can draw the rest of the conclusions from that. This part of the level, we are on these bars, and as you can probably tell, if we get hit, you get knocked off. I suppose the enemies are in the same boat, so it's fair and fair, except for the fact that there's 40 times more enemies than there are players, so I don't think it's fair. I'm not a fan of that kind of mechanic. I know it's a question, just get good, blah blah blah, all the good stuff, I can appreciate that, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. They are asking you to obey the rules, not to like the rules, kind of thing. End of level 1 boss, this big sumo guy, didn't seem to be much of a threat, but at least he was kind enough to blink like an hyperactive indicator to let me know that I couldn't touch him because he was invulnerable temporarily. Very nice of him. I didn't have to waste my time trying to do damage to him. From a gameplay point of view, though, the Amiga version definitely have one massive issue over the arcade original, and that is the fact that every enemy you fight have a longer reach than you. If you have a single enemy coming barreling down towards you and you start punching and kicking, if he decides to stop and punch and kick, he will hit you before you hit him. And that applies to every enemy. The only way you can get to beat them down normally is by basically moving up and down the screen and catch them being too close to you, and then you can try and fight them. Of course, what is common for games of this kind is the enemies will try to surround you. But in this game, unlike many other fighting games, they can actually surround you off screen. They can move off screen where you can't touch them, and then they can attack you. And that is a big no, no, no. Don't ever do that to me in a fighting game. I am going to call it names. I'm going to let it be exposed to boring speeches, day-old pizza, whatever. Don't do that. It's completely and utterly uncalled for. But because of the fact that enemies have longer reach than you, you are basically forced into using the throw as your main way of fighting enemies. In that regard, I have to mention that if you time your throw correctly as an enemy is about to attack you, you basically catch their leg as they're trying to kick you, and then you throw them. So you can actually avoid being hit by enemies despite their longer reach, but it's quite specific timing. But what it ends up being is that this mechanic, which is supposed to be super cool, stops being super cool because you are basically relying on it. It's not something you use because you want to. It's something you use because you don't have the option to use anything else. Now, I probably sound like I'm being overly harsh towards the Amiga version, and that is not necessarily intentional, because the problem is, outside of the throwing mechanic, the arcade original is a forgettable game. So basically, if you put your mind to making an arcade accurate, or as accurate as you can, conversion, and the foundation is planned, in order to make it accurate, you'll have to make it one game. Unless, of course, you're trying to reinvent the wheel, but then you might make it into a different game, or you may end up ruining the one thing that was exciting about this game. The problem is the throw is a gimmick, and once the excitement of the gimmick gets boring, the rest of the game follows suit very, very shortly after. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks for watching, take care, and see you next time. Bye-bye for now.